Hello, my friends. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe for more content. I never thought I'd be the type of person to get caught sneaking into school after hours. That's the thing about fear. You don't always recognize it until you're staring it straight in the face. But there I was, flashlight in hand, heart hammering, creeping through the back gate of Langley High. It started as a dare. My friends had been texting me all week about the perfect haunted adventure at the old school building. Supposedly, it had been abandoned after a string of strange incidents, disappearances, reports of whispers in the halls and classrooms that seemed to lock themselves. None of it made sense, and most of it was chalked up to teenage exaggeration. But something about being dared to spend an hour alone in the building after midnight was irresistible. I slipped through the gate, careful not to trip over the uneven grass. The old brick facade of the school loomed in the moonlight, casting long, jagged shadows across the cracked asphalt. The place smelled of mildew, wet concrete, and the faint metallic tang of rusted lockers. My flashlight's beam shook with my trembling hands as I reached for the front doors. They were supposed to be locked. They weren't. I stepped inside. Silence enveloped me like a heavy blanket. The air was thick, sticky, and smelled faintly of chalk and old paper. My footsteps echoed against the linoleum floors as I moved down the main hallway, scanning the rows of lockers and bulletin boards covered in faded announcements. Everything looked ordinary, too ordinary. Then I heard it, a soft shuffle from the gym corridor. I froze, straining my ears. My heart started pounding so loud I was sure anyone or anything could hear it. A door creaked open somewhere behind me, then slammed shut. I spun around. Nothing. "Relax," I muttered to myself. "It's just the wind." But the wind didn't lock doors or whisper my name. I decided to check the library. I had always been drawn to books even when I was scared, and the thought of being alone among thousands of silent pages was oddly comforting. The library was at the far end of the building, past the science labs and the staircase that led to the upper floors. The tiles were sticky under my sneakers, and the fluorescent lights flickered faintly overhead, casting sickly shadows on the walls. I pushed the library doors open, and the smell hit me first: mold, dust, and something else, something acrid and metallic. The shelves stretched high above me, and the silence was oppressive, almost too heavy to breathe. I stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind me with a force that rattled the glass windows. I jumped, dropping my flashlight. The beam rolled across the floor, landing on a row of books that seemed off. They were all textbooks, perfectly lined up, but the titles were wrong, like someone had rearranged them into words that made no sense. "They're watching." The letters stared at me, and I realized I had read them backwards. My stomach sank. I tried to leave. The door wouldn't budge. I pushed, slammed my shoulder against it, but it was as if it had fused with the frame. My breaths came in short, panicked gasps. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Not my own, not echoing mine. Something was moving in the library, slow, deliberate, and terrifyingly close. "Hello?" My voice sounded small, ridiculous. Silence. Then a whisper, soft and wet like someone breathing through water. "Don't leave." I turned toward the stacks, my flashlight trembling, catching a glimpse of movement at the end of the aisle. Something crouched there, impossibly thin, too long-limbed, face pressed to the edge of the shelf. It didn't move like a person. It jerked like a puppet, and I could see its eyes, black deep voids that seemed to swallow the light. I screamed and ran. My sneakers slipped on the tiles as I darted past the shelves, only to find the exit blocked by something else. A shadow, darker than the darkness itself, stretched across the doorway, moving toward me without a sound. I backed up into a corner. My mind raced. Think, think, think. Then I noticed the books, the ones on the shelves I had passed. Their titles were changing, words I didn't understand twisted into my name, repeated over and over. Abby, Abby, Abby. Wait, that wasn't my name. I must have imagined it. Or had I? My stomach churned, and I realized with horror that the whispering wasn't just behind me. It was everywhere, filling the library like water in a sinking ship. I grabbed the nearest book and threw it at the shadow. It didn't move. The shadow did. It split, slithering across the walls like ink in water, moving faster now, converging on me from every direction. Panic turned into pure instinct. I sprinted toward the science labs. If I could just get upstairs, maybe I could find a phone. The halls were endless. The doors led to rooms I didn't recognize, classrooms from other parts of the school, corridors that twisted back on themselves like a maze. My flashlight flickered and died, plunging me into darkness so complete it was suffocating. Then I heard it. Laughter. High, cold, childlike. It echoed from above, from below, from all around me. I could feel it crawling into my ears, into my skull, drilling into my thoughts. I stumbled into the music room. Instruments lined the walls, violins, cellos, trumpets, but they were broken, twisted. The piano keys moved on their own, pressing down in a slow, dreadful rhythm. The sound was wrong, deep, resonant, like a chorus of voices moaning under the surface. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to calm my racing heart. That's when I saw it. A figure, hunched and small, sitting on the piano bench. It was wearing a school uniform, but wrong. Too pale, too tight, the edges fraying like smoke. It looked up at me. Its eyes were hollow, black voids, and its mouth stretched wider than possible, forming a grin that didn't belong to any human face. I ran again, barreling through the door into the gym. The space was vast and empty, except for the basketballs that rolled slowly across the floor on their own, as if pushed by invisible hands. Shadows clung to the corners, twisting and moving toward me. I tried the emergency exit, locked. I tried the windows, too high, and then I realized the lights weren't flickering anymore. They were off. Only the moonlight streamed in, casting long shadows that didn't match anything in the room. Then, the gym doors slammed behind me, and the whispers started again. Not my name this time. My friends' names, one by one, echoing through the building, calling for help. I knew with sick certainty that they were trapped somewhere inside. Or worse, gone. I ran blind, guided only by fear. My hands brushed walls, lockers, anything to keep from falling. I heard a door open somewhere above me, a long creaking sound, and then a soft, dragging shuffle. Something was following me. Something that didn't breathe, didn't blink, didn't obey the laws of the world I knew. Finally, I reached the staircase to the roof. I didn't hesitate. I ran up 2 steps at a time, praying that I wasn't walking into another trap. I reached the top, threw the roof hatch open, and scrambled outside into the cold night. The air never felt so sweet. I ran across the field, past the gate, past the streetlights, until I finally stopped, gasping, shaking, drenched in sweat and fear. I looked back. The school sat silent and still, dark, innocent in the distance. Nothing moved, nothing breathed. But I knew the truth. The school wasn't empty, and it never would be. Because now, I carried something back with me. At night, when I close my eyes, I hear the whispers. I see the shadows curling at the edges of my vision. I know it's waiting for me to return, waiting for me to make a wrong step, waiting for the next dare. And the worst part? I know I'll never be able to resist. It started as a routine check, not the kind that keeps you awake at night, not the kind that makes your palms sweat. but a simple inspection. I'm the night janitor at Ellsworth High, a position most people consider boring, mundane. The kind of job where the scariest thing you encounter is a stuck vending machine or a broken pipe. But that night, something went wrong. I arrived around 10 p.m., my usual shift. The parking lot was empty except for my old truck. The wind rattled the chain-link fence surrounding the school, making it groan in protest. Inside, the building smelled of disinfectant and aged linoleum, empty classrooms, dark hallways, and the faint hum of fluorescent lights above. Everything seemed normal. It wasn't normal. I started with the cafeteria, checking the sinks and tossing out old trash. My footsteps echoed in the empty room. I felt a twinge of unease, but dismissed it. I'd walked these halls hundreds of nights. Then I heard it, a low, dragging sound from the gym corridor. Not like someone carrying something heavy, more like the floor itself was complaining. I froze. Probably just the heater, I muttered. I continued my route, moving toward the science wing. But the sound didn't stop. It followed me, growing louder, sharper. Something was moving in the shadows, just beyond my vision. My flashlight beam flickered as I entered the chemistry lab. The smell hit me immediately, sharp, acidic, metallic. I frowned. Nothing should smell like this. And then I saw it. The periodic table on the wall had changed. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. Elements shifted, letters blurred into symbols I didn't recognize. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. That's when I heard whispering. Soft, rhythmic, like students chanting from a distance. I told myself it was imagination. Night shifts play tricks on the mind, but then the lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the lab. My flashlight flickered, then died. Panic rose like bile in my throat. I fumbled in my pocket for my phone, the screen weakly illuminating the room. Shadows stretched along the walls, long and unnatural. One of them moved closer, sliding across the floor without feet, without shape. I ran. Hallways twisted in ways I didn't remember. Doors led to rooms that didn't exist on the blueprint. I tried to retrace my steps, but the school seemed to shift around me. Every hallway led back to the same door, the auditorium. I didn't want to go in. The auditorium had always been off limits at night, but the dragging sound grew louder, more insistent. A cold sweat dripped down my back as I approached the stage. The curtains swayed, even though there was no draft. The wooden floorboards creaked under invisible weight. And then I saw it. Rows of chairs, perfectly aligned, each occupied by silhouettes. Not students, not teachers, something else. Black forms, featureless, but wrong. Their heads tilted at impossible angles. Their hands rested on their laps, but the fingers were too long, too thin. I stepped back. My heart thundered. Then the whispering started again, closer, louder, and now I could hear my name, not once, not twice, over and over. Jason, Jason, Jason. I froze. How could they know my name? I didn't even live in this town. One figure stood. It glided toward me, silent, hovering above the floor. I could feel the cold emanating from it, creeping into my bones. My skin prickled. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. My chest felt heavy, as if gravity had doubled. "You shouldn't be here," it said. Its voice was hollow, layered like hundreds of whispers all speaking at once. I forced my legs to move, bolting toward the stage exit, but the doors weren't there, only a solid wall. I pounded on it, pounded, screamed, begged, nothing. The figure moved closer, reaching out with hands that should have been impossible. The darkness seemed to twist around it, stretching, pulsing. And then, another sound. Laughter. High-pitched, shrill, like a dozen children screaming at once. It echoed from behind the walls, the ceiling, the floor. I covered my ears. The whispering and laughter merged, forming a melody that rattled my mind. I stumbled backward, crashing into the stage lights. One flickered on, casting a single beam across the room. And that's when I saw the audience. They weren't just silhouettes, they were people, former students, former staff, faces twisted in silent screams, eyes hollow, mouths open as if shouting in terror. I recognized some. Students who had disappeared years ago, teachers who retired suddenly, janitors who quit in the middle of the night, all trapped, all here. I screamed, and then silence. I opened my eyes to find myself alone on the stage. The silhouettes were gone, the whispers vanished. My flashlight worked again. The auditorium looked normal, empty, quiet. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the parking lot, my truck, the street lights. Nothing followed me, nothing breathed behind me. Everything was normal, too normal. The next day, I told myself it was a dream, a hallucination. Stress, isolation, too many nights alone in a building full of echoes. But things weren't normal. I returned to work the next night. I didn't go inside. I stayed outside, watching the school from the parking lot. And that's when I saw it. The windows. One by one, the auditorium windows lit up. Shadowy figures stood inside, motionless, staring at me. I ran home. I haven't gone back. I won't. But every night when the wind rattles the windows and the street lights flicker, I hear it. The whispering, the dragging, the audience waiting for me. And deep down, I know they're not confined to the school. Something went wrong that night. I shouldn't have survived. But now, they're following me, watching, waiting. And I don't know how long I have before I become part of the auditorium, another silent figure in the audience, staring at the world through hollow eyes. Because the school doesn't end at the walls. It never ends. I was never supposed to be in the school after hours, not as a student, not as anyone. But here I was, crouched behind the cafeteria tables, clutching my phone like a lifeline, praying it would still have a signal. It all started with detention. Not the regular kind either, the one where you sit for an hour while a teacher glares at you and you doodle on scraps of paper. This was after-school detention, the kind the principal only assigns to kids who push the rules too far. And apparently, I had pushed them too far this time. At first, it was normal. The janitor handed me a stack of worksheets and told me to work quietly until he locked up. I sat in the classroom, headphones on, doodling and texting, ignoring the whispers that seemed to drift from the walls. I thought I was imagining them. By 8:30 p.m., everyone else had gone. I was the only one left. The janitor smiled as he walked me to the front doors. "You know the drill," he said. "Don't leave the classroom until your time is up." I nodded, a little nervous. He locked the door behind him. That's when I first noticed the smell. Something burned. Not smoke exactly, but sharp, acrid, like metal heated to white hot. I shrugged it off. By 9 p.m., the lights began flickering. I thought it was a wiring problem. Then, the clock on the wall stopped. Not a simple pause, it froze, hands at 9:07 exactly. I checked my phone. Same time. Odd, but I tried to focus on my work. Then I heard it. A soft, rhythmic tapping coming from the hallway outside. At first, I thought it was the janitor returning, maybe checking something. But the sound grew louder, slower, deliberate. Footsteps. No, not footsteps. Something dragging along the floor. I leaned against the door, pressing my ear to the cold metal. Silence, then a whisper. "Hello, hello, hello." It wasn't human, at least it didn't sound human. Too many voices layered together, overlapping, echoing. My stomach knotted. I tried the door, locked. I pulled, yanked, and pounded. Nothing. I banged on the walls. Nothing. Panic set in. I realized I wasn't just trapped, I was alone with whatever was outside. I ran to the back of the classroom, trying to find another exit. The windows were barred, the walls solid. The room had grown wrong. Everything seemed larger, stretched in subtle, unnatural ways. The ceiling loomed higher than it should, shadows crawling like living things. I dropped to the floor, shaking, trying to think. The whispers had grown louder, the dragging sound closer. I could feel it against the door now, pressing, testing, wanting me out. Something slammed against the window. I jumped. My phone fell, screen cracking, battery dying. The room went dark. The only sound was the whispering, now unmistakable, chanting my name over and over. I scrambled to my feet, heart hammering. I ran to the back corner where the teacher's desk sat. That's when I saw the papers, my worksheets, every single one covered in words I didn't write, messages, directions, drawings, symbols. They weren't in English. They were alive, squirming, twisting as I watched, forming letters I could somehow understand. "You can't leave. Not yet. We need you," I screamed. The dragging stopped. Silence. Then the wall behind the teacher's desk moved. Not like a shadow. Like the wall itself had become liquid, rippling, forming an opening, an endless black void that smelled like sulfur and wet stone. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop. Something emerged. Tall, thin, faceless, limbs bending wrong, joints snapping at impossible angles. It didn't walk. It glided, silent, graceful, and it reached for me. I ran. I bolted toward the door, slamming against it. My shoulder hurt, bruising already. And that's when I realized something worse than being trapped. The classroom had changed. The walls weren't the same. The floor stretched farther than it should, corridors leading to doors that weren't on any floor plan. I had been inside for less than an hour, but now, time wasn't mine. I ran down hallways that didn't exist, past classrooms filled with flickering lights, empty desks but filled with whispers. I saw figures, students, teachers, faces I recognized from memory, their mouths opening in silent screams. They were trapped too, moving like puppets controlled by shadows. I tried to leave through the gym, but the doors led to the cafeteria. The cafeteria doors led to the auditorium. Every exit looped back. I was in a maze, a nightmare constructed from bricks, linoleum, and fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry insects. By midnight, I thought, it stopped. The lights went out. Complete darkness. Only the whispering remained. And then, laughter. High-pitched, deranged. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere. I curled up behind a table, shaking, sobbing. I felt hands brush my shoulder. Not warm, not human. Cold. I flinched, expecting to see the faceless figure. Nothing, only the whispers, only the dragging. I whispered, "Please, please." The laughter stopped. Silence again. Then my phone, somehow charged, screen glowing, lit up. A single message appeared. "You're next. We've been waiting." I dropped it. I don't know why I looked up. I shouldn't have. The door in front of me opened. The void from the teacher's desk had spread, crawling along the walls, swallowing the hallway in blackness. The faceless figure emerged. Others followed. Their mouths opened in perfect, silent unison. I ran into the void. I didn't know what else to do. And that's when I realized this wasn't a school anymore. Not really. It was a trap, a living entity built to collect people. Each classroom, each hallway, each locker filled with memories of those it had taken before. They weren't gone. They were here, part of it, part of the walls, the floors, the ceilings. I thought I might survive, but I was wrong. I woke up at dawn, outside the school gates, my uniform torn, clothes soaked in something sticky. Nothing followed me. Nothing breathed. The school looked normal, empty, innocent, but I knew better. By nightfall, the whispering would return. By nightfall, the dragging. And by nightfall, the school would call my name again. Something went wrong that night. I shouldn't have escaped. I shouldn't have survived. But I did. For now. And that's why I can't stop walking past the school during the day. Because when the sun sets, the walls shift, the doors open, and the school waits. And it always wins eventually. I never should have been here. Not at this hour, not in this school, not alone. But curiosity and the dare pushed me past the gates and into the darkened halls of Brookridge High. It started like any other night, quiet and still. The streetlights outside flickered, casting long shadows through the barred windows. I had my backpack, a flashlight, and a sense of teenage bravado. Everyone else had left for the weekend, leaving the school empty except for the cleaning crew, who, conveniently, all left at 8 p.m. The dare was simple. Stay inside the school for 1 hour, alone, and record everything on my phone. No one would check on me. No one would stop me. Except that I didn't realize the school had other plans. I entered through the side doors near the gym. The lock gave way easier than I expected, as if it was waiting for me. The air inside smelled of old books and dust, but something else lingered underneath. A sharp, chemical tang, almost metallic. My flashlight beam trembled in my hands as I walked the main corridor, passing rows of lockers that gleamed faintly in the dim light. I reached the science wing first. The fluorescent lights flickered, buzzing a strange, intermittent hum that sounded like whispers. I paused, straining to listen. It was faint, almost imperceptible. Then I heard it clearly. A soft tap, 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 like fingernails against the linoleum floor. "Hello?" I called, trying to sound braver than I felt. Silence. I shrugged, telling myself it was just the building settling. But as I moved down the hallway, I noticed the doors were different. Some classrooms I remembered clearly weren't here. Others weren't rooms at all. They were just black rectangles, like windows into an abyss. I stopped in front of the chemistry lab. The door was cracked open, though I could have sworn I had seen it locked earlier. My flashlight flickered as I peered inside. The room looked normal. Bunsen burners, lab tables, chemical cabinets. But on one table, a notebook lay open. I didn't leave it. I hadn't seen it before. I picked it up. The pages were filled with handwriting I didn't recognize. Notes, calculations, and diagrams. But one thing caught my eye. At the bottom of the page, written in large, jagged letters, "Don't leave. It's watching." I froze. My hands shook. "It's a joke," I whispered. "Someone left this here as a prank." I turned to leave. That's when I heard it, the faintest creak of a door closing. The metal handle on the lab door turned slowly, on its own. I ran. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away. The hallway stretched unnaturally long. Lockers that should have been red were now green. Posters on the walls warped, twisting into grotesque faces that seemed to watch me pass. I stumbled into the library. It was huge, larger than I remembered, ceiling too high, shelves stretching far beyond the windows. And the books moved. Not in the wind. They shifted, rearranging themselves, forming letters I could almost read before the words dissolved back into ordinary pages. I tried to find a door, tried to leave. Nothing worked. Every exit led deeper into the school. Then I saw them. Figures. Human-shaped, but wrong. Too tall, too thin, with heads that tilted at unnatural angles. They didn't walk. They glided. They didn't breathe, but I could feel their presence pressing against me, cold and heavy, like a storm cloud ready to burst. My flashlight flickered again. I dropped it. When I picked it up, one of the figures was closer. I could see empty sockets where eyes should have been. I could see its mouth opening in a silent scream, and then it whispered, "You shouldn't be here." I screamed, bolted. I didn't care where. I ran past hallways that seemed to stretch forever, classrooms that led to nowhere, staircases that curved and twisted like a funhouse mirror. And always, just behind me, the whispering. Closer, closer, closer. I stumbled into the gym. The lights were dim, just enough to see. Basketballs rolled across the floor on their own. The net swayed, though there was no breeze. And on the far side of the gym, the figures waited, standing in a perfect line, facing me. I froze. The whispering stopped. Silence. And then the scoreboard turned on, numbers flashing, 11:59, 1 minute until midnight. I backed up, my heart in my throat. The figures didn't move. The room seemed to shrink around me. Then, the first bell rang. It wasn't a school bell. It was loud, metallic, resonating in every part of the building. And with it, the gym walls melted into shadows. The figures began to move, not towards me, but around me. They circled, always just out of reach, murmuring. I turned to run. Nothing. Every exit disappeared. The gym became a cage. The scoreboard ticked down. 11:58, 11:57. The figures closed in. Their whispers turned into words I could hear clearly now. Stay, learn, join us. I realized what was happening. The school wasn't just a building, it was alive. It fed on curiosity, on fear, on anyone who dared to wander its halls after hours, and the dare was its trap. I screamed, pounding on the walls, the floor, the ceiling. My voice echoed, but no one answered. Only the figures advanced, gliding closer, closer, until I could feel their cold touch brushing my skin. I reached for my phone, called 911, no signal, texted friends, messages didn't send. I remembered the janitor. I could hear his voice in my memory, vague and warning. Don't leave the classroom until your time is up. But it was too late. The last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed me was the clock above the scoreboard striking midnight. The bell rang again, and then silence. When I woke, I was outside. The doors of the school were normal. The hallways looked ordinary. No figures, no whispers, no gym, only the street lights in my trembling hands. My phone lay at my feet, cracked, dead. I ran home. I didn't stop until I reached my room, locked the door, turned on every light, and yet, even as I tried to convince myself it was a dream, I could hear it, faint, almost imperceptible, like the echo of a bell. The school's alive, and it's waiting. I don't know why I was let go. Maybe it's not done with me yet. Maybe it's still learning. But I know one thing. One day, it will call my name again. And next time, something will go horribly, irreversibly wrong. Because the school doesn't forget. The school doesn't forgive. And the school never lets go. I never imagined that staying late at school could feel like stepping into another world. Maybe I should have known better. Maybe it was the silence that got to me first, the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums, making you hyper-aware of every creak, every whisper of air through the vents. I was the last one in the school that night, helping Mr. Thompson, the janitor, with some paperwork and cleaning. He had told me I could leave at 10, but my curiosity and the challenge from my friends made me linger. The hallways stretched out before me like veins, each locker a dark cavity, each classroom a mouth I wasn't supposed to enter. By 10:15, Mr. Thompson had gone, leaving me alone. I knew I should have followed him out, but I told myself I'd only wander a little. I'd walk the halls, maybe peek into the library, and then leave. Easy. Harmless. The first thing I noticed was the gym. Its doors, usually locked, were slightly ajar, an unnatural creak in the hinge inviting me in. I shined my flashlight down the hall and saw nothing, just polished floors gleaming under the dim emergency lights. But I heard a shuffle, soft, deliberate. It sounded like feet dragging across the floor. I froze, telling myself it was the wind or the building settling. Still, a chill crawled up my spine. I stepped inside the gym. The air smelled metallic, like iron and damp concrete. Shadows danced along the walls in rhythm with my flashlight. I was certain I was imagining them until I heard the sound of a basketball bouncing, slowly, in a perfect, deliberate rhythm. "No one's here," I muttered, my voice trembling. The sound stopped. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw a shape move, a boy crouched watching me. His face was pale but off, too thin, too elongated. I blinked. He wasn't there anymore. I tried to laugh it off. My nerves, I told myself. I was imagining things, but that's when the door slammed shut behind me. I ran, heart hammering. The hallway outside stretched farther than it should. I knew this hallway, had walked it 100 times, but now it twisted, curving impossibly. I ran past lockers that seemed to lean toward me, whispers tickling my ears. I spun around. Nothing. I reached the library next, normally comforting. The smell of paper and dust somehow nauseated me now. The lights flickered. Every book on the shelves seemed to tremble, shifting slightly when I looked away. Titles morphed in the dim glow. "You can't leave. Don't forget us. We are here." I tried a window. Locked. Emergency exit doors. Locked. Even the janitor's old office, my supposed safe zone, was gone. The hallway behind me had changed again. The tiles stretched like rubber, the walls bending inward. I pressed against a shelf, trying to think. That's when I noticed the whispering. A chorus, soft at first, almost comforting, then louder, insistent, repeating my name. "Alex, Alex, Alex." I ran again, reckless, down the art wing. Paintings on the walls twisted to show faces I recognized. Students who had graduated years ago, teachers who had retired, all screaming silently. I stopped at one painting. It was me, or a version of me, trapped behind the canvas, staring back with wide, terrified eyes. I screamed and ran. My flashlight flickered. I dropped it. Darkness swallowed me. When I picked it up, the hall was different again. Classrooms stretched endlessly. Doors led to nowhere. Ceilings rose impossibly high. My own footsteps echoed like hundreds of them, though I was alone. I thought I heard laughter, not human laughter. It was thin, high-pitched, layered. I spun around. A figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, thin, faceless, wearing what looked like my school uniform. Its movements were unnatural, bending at impossible angles. It didn't walk, it glided. I ran. Past the cafeteria, the auditorium, the science labs, every room I entered held more figures. Students, teachers, people I knew, but twisted, silent, watching me. Some reached out, their hands brushing mine without touching, cold and empty. Others whispered my name. I tried to call out to them, tried to beg them to let me leave. But they didn't answer, only followed. The school itself seemed alive, corridors shifting, walls bending, ceilings stretching. Every door I tried led back to the same hall, the main staircase. I climbed, desperate for an exit. The stairs spiraled endlessly upward, each step creaking under my weight, echoing like a funeral drum. At the top, I reached the roof hatch. Relief, freedom. I pushed it open. The sky was black, but no stars. The wind was wrong. Thick, heavy, filled with whispers. And the school. I realized with horror it had grown behind me, larger than life, stretching endlessly, impossibly. like a living thing. I jumped down, landing on the fire escape. My leg hit hard. Pain shot through me, but I ignored it. I ran to the parking lot, to my car. Everything was silent, empty, ordinary, too ordinary. I drove home, shaken, thinking it over. Maybe it was stress. Maybe I'd just been alone too long. Maybe I'd imagined the figures, the whispers, the impossible hallways. But when I walked past the school the next day, something was off. The windows reflected my image back at me, but not just me. Behind my reflection, figures moved, twisting, bending, watching. And when I reached for the door that led to the main office, I could swear the handle turned on its own. I know something went wrong that night. I shouldn't have survived, but I did. And now the school remembers me. Every night in my dreams I hear the whispers. I see the corridors stretch endlessly, the figures reaching. And every night I wake up knowing one day I'll have to go back. Because the school doesn't let go. Not once it knows you. And I know deep down that when I return, something will be waiting. Something I can't fight. Something I won't escape. Comment below which story hit you the hardest.